How goes the family? Welcome back to Larry's Anything Goes. Hopefully you guys have an awesome day. Today's subject matter I'll be talking about, the article that I actually found very interesting the other day, because I remember talking about Mr. Robert F. Smith a few months ago because of what the successful financial businessman that he is, what he did for Morehouse graduates by paying off their debts, their college debts, and help those young men have a fresh start in life. And I think I think he should continuously be commended, even though I commended him and others did. And for what Mr. Smith did and what he continues to do to help young aspiring entrepreneurs to continually go after their dreams, especially within the African American community. So you definitely give my respect, Mr. Smith. But today I want to talk about another gentleman that falls in the category of Mr. Robert F. Smith, and his name is Mr. Willie Woods, who is the president of ICV Partners. And there it is. Wants to act up today. But anyways, he falls into the category of Mr. Smith and Mr. Willie Woods. He is the president of ICV Partners, LLC, which is basically a black-owned New York City-based private equity firm. Mr. Woods is from Detroit, Michigan, in which during the 1980s era, when basically I always call it the Wolf of Wall Street era, when professional development was all about stock market professionals, hostile takeovers, junk bonds, finance deals that transform corporate outsiders into masters of the universe, all that great stuff. So, however, Mr. Woods knew that he wanted to do something different in business, which is why he majored in accounting, which I think is an awesome thing. Mr. Woods actually went to Morehouse College as well, so kind of ironic, right? It all coexists with each other. And during his summer time off from school, he worked in payroll departments of General Motors, which was a source of pride for a lot of his family members, because especially during that time frame, Detroit was definitely the big auto industry, blue collar city. And a lot of his family members worked on the assembly line, and they were very proud of him for what he was doing, and they knew he was on his way. And the beautiful thing that I found out about Mr. Woods is that he was making a great living, college educated, but he had other goals in mind and aspirations and all that good stuff. So it's like you can get to that place of comfort, but then it's like, okay, nowadays the comfort zone is the death sentence, or it's just a stagnation sentence, as I call it. But back then, not so many people had, especially in the African American community, had that entrepreneurial mindset to say, hey, let me do something different. Especially it was like, hey, I got a great job, I got a college degree, I'm doing great, all is well with the world. But he had other aspects in mind, and I think that's great, So after, because he basically decided, like, hey, he's got other goals and aspirations, so instead of staying in the automobile industry, he went to the banking industry in Detroit, which is a great thing, think outside of the box. After obtaining extensive finance experience, Mr. Woods had a burning desire to work on Wall Street. He researched about Wall Street and constantly read the Wall Street Journal about iconic leverage buyout finance of various major investment bankers and what they were doing, because obviously back then, that's what you did if you wanted to work on Wall Street. I imagine you still do that, but with today's platforms, you got so many other avenues to research at the same time. And Mr. Woods tried to figure out how he could get to Wall Street and going to Harvard Business School as the route to get there. And it worked for him. Mr. Woods obtained a position at Lehman Brothers Investment Bank. Make no mistake about it though, Mr. Woods had to go through a lot of hard times at Lehman Brothers, along with other African American interns, because he started off as an intern by standing their grounds about how lots of African Americans were basically being shut out of Wall Street on a regular basis. Surprisingly, Mr. Woods won various arguments against his senior management and they actually decided to bring him on board. And due to the range of transactions in which he was involved, Woods learned the financial and operational dynamics of mergers and acquisitions, working with CEOs, CFOs, and those at the highest levels of the inside. It's all about collaboration effort, And that's the thing, a lot of times, just because you want to be an entrepreneur doesn't mean you can't actually go to another firm or organization or whatever and learn how they do business, because sometimes the best thing in life to get is not a degree but experience. So it's like, even if you get a certified skilled trade, can you do the job? Can you do the work? Get the experience. And that's what he did, obviously, before he decided to even go out on his own. So I think that's a beautiful thing. And working in the firm and industrial, consumer, and real estate groups during his tenure there, Mr. Woods gained his front row seat and participated in some of the streets, as they called it, most celebrated and complex transactions, including the $840 million initial public offering of real estate investment trust Simon Property Group, the largest deal of its kind at the time, and General Motors EDS Units, which is about $600 million acquisitions of consulting from a firm known as A.T. Kearney. Mr. Woods was sad, though, when he left Lehman due to the financial crises that occurred back in the 2006, 7, 8 timeframe. But he turned this, bad thing, unfortunate event into an opportunity because he learned a lot about private equity. And at Lehman, he was leveraging buyouts, bond deals, and other work deals all at the same time. He was also working with financial sponsors who leaned on his company team because they lacked the sufficient staff in order for them to operate their organizations. And with all that being said, he enjoyed his experiences, but he enjoyed the entrepreneurial aspects of private equity because it equals innovative financing with value creation, all that good stuff. Mr. Woods gained more indispensable experience by engaging in high-profile transactions, restructuring companies when he left Lehman to develop a startup inside of a bank. The Basic Industries Group at Bankers Trust, which became one of the most profitable at the institution that would be acquired by Deutsche Bank for $10 billion in 1998. So my man was willing to deal into getting it done, and hopefully at the same time having fun. But obviously he was getting a lot of great experiences, and one of the biggest traits that Mr. Woods' equity firm offers is a 6-year investment in entertainment cruises as an example, a cruise line as an example. So Mr. Woods' company in 2006 invested about in a small dinner cruise company, which grossed about $35 million, which was based in Boston, Chicago, and Washington, D.C. areas. So this company, ICV, got to work with first cashing out the angel investor and then merging Premier with its largest competitor, and that's in Spirit Cruises, and later acquiring Baltimore Harbor Cruises, which basically expanded the company's reach to New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Norfolk, Virginia, all the port cities. And over the next few years, it combined the organizations, realigned costs, and upgraded management in key departments. And moreover, Mr. Woods' ICV's company's guidance improved top line and bottom line results. For example, his company adopted practices such as demand pricing, which has been effectively used by hotels and airlines to significantly increase fees during holidays and special occasions. So, sales and profits grew for his organization, even when the country was in the biggest moments of the greatest economic downturn in our generation. Mr. Woods stated that this investment checked all the boxes, the deal situation was right, the red flags around one of the investment practices got diligent, and he said they saw a lot of opportunities to make the company better with revenue management. And that's one thing to keep in mind. The tourism industry, vacation industry is not going anywhere because people love to get away, especially during the winter time, especially during the holidays. People love to have fun, especially if people live in the Northeast, the Southeast. They live in the Midwest, very cold areas. They want to get away and have a good time, go to different islands, go to different countries, and all that good time. So I think it was an awesome thing of him learning the business, learning the profitability of these businesses, and being able to help other people all at the same time. So I think that is a great thing. So, and then one thing before I continue, he stated that they not only did they saw a lot of opportunities that made the company better with revenue management, but they actually saw an acquisition that they could add to, and that was very, and I quote, synergistic. So at the end of the day, let's get into, if you do not know what a private equity firm is, let's get into the one-on-one aspects of a family. A private equity firm is an investment management company that provides financial backing and makes investment in private equity of startup or operating companies through a variety of loosely affiliated investment strategies, including leverage buyout, venture capital, and growing capital. What should this mean to you? Well, having a man like Mr. Woods in this kind of position, he can and has invested in African American communities in an economic way. And a great example is when Mr. Woods took part during his second year for a business school field study to, second year in college, field study to identify a range of impactful businesses that could be developed within the inner city as part of the Rebuild Los Angeles initiative in the aftermath of the 1992 riots. So I believe it was a second year in business. Okay, Mr. Michael Porter, who was Mr. Woods' former professor and mentor from Harvard University, created the Initiative for a Competitive Inner City, ICIC, and a nonprofit that seeks to promote economic prosperity in urban America through private sector investments. As such, Mr. Porter viewed the development of an ICIC fund as being critical in providing local entities much needed capital to operate and grow. To implement his plan, he reached out to Mr. Woods to gain support for the ICIC fund. Mr. Woods and Mr. Porter brought Michael Fitz, Managing Director and CEO of New York-based equity giant American Securities and LLC, into the dialogue. American Securities is backed by a Rosenwald family, who's basically, they obtained their fortune behind the Sears department stores chains, and a fund that supported education for millions of African-American children during the 20th century. So Mr. Fitch concluded that the fund needed to be larger in size and scope, as well as owned and operated by African Americans. So Mr. Woods has always been struck by the serendipitous nature of his company's founding. And he stated, and I quote, "If I never went to Harvard Business School or had Michael as my professor, ICV as company would never have been launched." So at the end of the day, what should you take away from this video? And I say, one, never settle for just being normal, because being normal nowadays is to be stagnated. You know, just having a job and not advancing relationships, not only just advancing careers, but advancing relationships, advancing the time you spend with people that mean something, advancing your thought process, and always be willing to put yourself in a situation to where you're in a learning atmosphere. That is what one always wants to do. It's easy to watch reality TV, even if you got your degree, even if you got your career, but that's a way to keep you stagnated. Not to say to never have any fun, but you always want to be ensured that you're in an atmosphere where you're learning, you're in an atmosphere where you're growing, and you're around people that want the best, not only want the best for you, but are willing to implement and create relationships for you all at the same time. Whether it's the person, your significant other, your best friend you hang out with on a daily basis. And that's what Mr. Woods continues to do to this day. Never forgot where he came from. Investing, he actually, with his private equity firm, invested in specific communities, especially communities that he came from within the African American community. And you know, nowadays being normal is just having a job, and it can lead to being stagnant in life. You can survive, but you know, we're going into 2020. Do you just want to survive in life? You got to ask yourself that question. You know, and then another thing is, who you decide to allow in your life matters a lot as well. Mr. Woods went from a high-paid employee, remember that, high-paid employee, to a prominent president of his own company. If you look at Mr. Woods' efforts and what his firm went from raising $130 million for the first fund, and then $313 million and $400 million for the second and third funds, respectively, in subsequent years. So when it really boils down to it, he could have just stayed on Wall Street, had a job, and all that good stuff, but he decided to take the extra ladder. It's kind of like that one article I read the other day, which I'm going to make a video about soon. These two ladies during the government recession, they weren't getting paid. So what did? They got a side hustle, and they created a company, and the company has basically replaced their jobs. So I say that to say this: remember this, you can't get fired if you own the company. At one thing, and then two, we live in times where just having a job is never going to cut it anymore, unless technology just goes completely, and we got to start back over again like we're in the 1920s or 30s, something to that effect. So please keep that in mind. Please continuously fight for your dreams and goals and aspirations, and let those goals and aspirations be outside of the norm, because great example, what I'm utilizing right now, normal people didn't create it. People who thought outside of the box created it. They created the YouTube, they created Facebook, they created the computer, they created the internet. The list goes on and on. All the stuff we use on a regular basis weren't created by people that just wanted to have a job. So keep that in mind. Be creative, implement, motivate, educate, mentor. You make sure you find the right mentor, etc., and so forth, because people that are just going to have a job and a degree or a skill certification, skill trade, and not implement more and do the right thing by their money and build relationships so that they can make their money grow will lose. No matter who the president is, no matter who runs Congress, no matter who your governor is, no matter who the mayor is, you will lose every single time. And that's the only way I can put it from an entrepreneurial perspective. If you guys like the video, please give it a like, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe, check out my online store, and always have a great day. Take care.